Whether you drive a car,
need a car,
or just occasionally bum a ride with friends,
you've come to the right place.
Join Jill and Tom as they break down everything that's going on in the auto world.
New car reviews,
Shopping tips,
driving green,
electric cars,
classic cars,
and plenty of great guests.
This is the Consumer Guide Car Stuff Podcast.
All right, this is the Car Stuff Podcast. I am Tom. Thanks for joining us today. When you get a chance, do me a big favor. Check us out at consumerguide.com. That's consumerguide.com. If you are shopping for a new car or truck, you want to check out our Best Buy list. If you want to check out back episodes of the podcast, you can do that right there on our homepage. Also, a lot easier if you just subscribe. It's good for everyone. It's good for us. All right. She is Jill Ciminillo. She is managing editor of Pickup Truck Plus SUV Talk. She's a North American Car of the Year juror. And today we're going to try to not say good question.
That's a good question. Wait, that's a good answer.
We were just talking to producer Randy about how many people do that, and I know I do that.
Oh, I'm sure we all do that. But you said it buys your brain 6 minutes to come up with an answer.
Little time. It does. It's conversational. You don't pause too deeply. But one of the things about that, and I'm not saying I'm any good at this, but pausing is not bad. Better to pause than to hem and haw.
I don't know. So, like, if I just...
All right, that's too long.
I'm just going to pause right here.
How has this gone so wrong already?
It already went wrong. All
right. That was Jill Ciminillo. We'll see her next week. All right. We have a lot going on today.
Yes.
I'm very excited because I've been wanting to have this conversation for a long time. But we have the folks from Nikola.
Yes.
On the show. And
yes.
Nikola, they've been in the news for a while. They produce electric over-the-road trucks and, more importantly, fuel cell.
Yes.
Hydrogen-powered fuel cell over-the-road trucks. We're going to be talking about that. We'll be talking about what the marketing case is for that and then what they're doing because they are now building trucks.
Yes.
They were building and selling trucks, and they plan to build a lot of them this year.
Yeah.
So that's a cool story. All right. We later on, we're going to talk about the Subaru Forester. You drove that. That's all new?
Yes.
It doesn't look all new.
I'm gonna say yes to that.
All right.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a messy business. Like when the Nissan Frontier came out a couple of years ago.
Right. They called it all new.
They called it all new. But it was new enough.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. I didn't fit in the old Frontier. I fit in the new Frontier. So serious changes were made.
Yes.
If there's some carryover chassis bits, I don't care.
Carryover chassis bits.
Which is a good name for a country band.
Okay.
All right. We have news. Want to talk news?
Sure, let's talk news.
Elon Musk has lost his mind.
Wait, has lost or had lost several years ago?
Well, I'm confused. I'm confused by part of what happened. So he's laying off people. Their growth period is over. We've talked about that. Welcome to the auto business. So Tesla now needs to be competitive, and they can't have a lot of extra costs out there, and they're not going to be making huge margins anymore.
Right.
That's a thing. But they're still making vehicles that people like, and they're selling an awful lot of them.
Correct.
So the fact that they decided to fire a bunch of people and then fire everyone in their charging station division, the supercharger charging division of the company, is bizarre because they had just invited all sorts of companies to join in and start letting their patrons, their customers, charge at supercharger stations.
Yeah. So, I mean, I have so many questions.
Yeah.
Because, like, the people who are in charge of building and maintaining this infrastructure that, pretty much every, major automaker is signed on to now, all those people are gone.
It's really weird. And Ford and Rivian customers already using them.
Yes.
And here's a simple question. Who's going to shovel the snow?
Yeah. Who's going to shovel the snow? Who's going to make sure that the programming still works? Yeah. When I heard that, I was, I had a similar thought to you, thinking this guy has officially lost it.
Yeah. Now they're hiring some people back, which is weird. I heard a theory, and I can't remember where I heard it. It's not my theory, but it makes sense. It's possible that Tesla wants to spin off the supercharger division as its own company. It would certainly be a good way to raise a lot of cash.
Yeah. No, I guess I could see it. And, that would make good fiscal sense, especially since I think that is going to be a big moneymaker. Oh, yeah. Because the car sales, and I don't mean that the car sales are only going to go down, but they're only going to level off as more players enter the field. For so many years, Tesla was the only game in town, and now they are not. So they need new ways to...
Yeah, and they just spent a bunch of money bringing out the Cybertruck, and it's looking increasingly likely that is not going to impact their overall sales much, and it's certainly not going to bring them more to the bottom line.
No.
And it may end up costing them money over the life of this particular version of the vehicle. And the $25,000 vehicle isn't going to happen.
No.
Even if it was going to happen, it wasn't going to be $25,000. But they stopped building their plant in Mexico if they ever started. So we'll see what's going on. But they don't seem to have products in the pipeline except for this weird thing they want to do with a ride-hailing vehicle. And who cares?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've had the conversation about their full self-driving technology, as we like to call it, the fake self-driving technology, because you have to keep your hands on the wheel the entire time. So, I don't know how they expect to be able to do a driverless hailing whatever if they can't even get their own, quote unquote full self-driving technology to work. In
terms of Tesla autonomy, I don't think we're closer now than we were 5 years ago.
No,
they had to retreat.
Yeah.
So anyway, enough of that. That's weird news. Sad news.
Okay, sad news.
Sad news for General Motors fans. The Malibu.
Oh, yes.
The Malibu's dead. And then I've got conflicting stories about how dead the Malibu is.
Okay.
One is that 2024 is it.
Okay.
But production stops now.
Okay.
But there's another suggestion that after a couple of weeks there will be a short run of 2025s. But only this year. And then that plant, which is Fairfax, General Motors Fairfax, where they build the Cadillac XT4, is going to shut down for a little while. Retool, they will still build the XT4, that's Cadillac's compact crossover, and the new Chevy Bolt.
Okay.
And I'm hoping the new Chevy Bolt is a lot like the old Chevy Bolt.
You mean you don't think it'll look like the Chevy Malibu?
I don't care what it looks like. I just want it to be as fun to drive and as affordable.
Well, the old Chevy Bolt was exceptional. Like, there are some cars that, you go in, you drive them, and you're like, okay, that was fine. And then there are some cars you go in and you drive, and you're like, that beat my expectations.
That was the thing.
That was, yeah.
Yeah. I've only driven a Bolt twice. One was a regular car, one was the EUV, the crossover that didn't look anything like a crossover.
Right.
It looked slightly different from the base car.
Right.
But what a joy to drive. It was quick. It was flingable. Really good interior space. Everything about it was great. And what was it, 260 miles of range? Yeah. A lot there to like for $30,000.
Yeah.
And you could use the tax credit on it.
Yeah.
So hoping that comes back much like it was.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed. So I have a friend out there who is very sad about the demise of the Chevy Malibu. That was the only car she bought for 20 or 30 years. And she keeps asking me, so what's new on the Chevy Malibu? And I'm like, nothing. There's nothing.
They went to a CVT. I don't think we ever drove that.
No.
But the thing about the Malibu is long history. Wait, I wrote this down somewhere. I have my Malibu history here. 1964, it was a version of the Chevelle. It was a high-end version of the Chevelle, went all the way through 2024, maybe 2025. And in the last few years, since you and I have started writing about cars, really good-looking ones, it's profoundly ugly ones. Really nasty. But do you remember the Malibu Max?
Okay, so my mother owned the Malibu Max.
Okay.
And I have to tell you, she still talks about that car, and she still wants it in the driveway. She loved that car. She's like, that's literally the best car I've ever owned.
For people who don't remember, it was sort of a wagony hatchbacky
sedan.
Yeah, spelled with two X's, which is troubling if you're a journalist.
But so it was very troubling. But so there were a couple of really cool things about this vehicle that my mother loved. So the first thing, this was a sedan, so it was small, but it also, in the back, because of the hatchback, it had this tray that you could put in as a shelf. So you could put, if you went to to go get flowers, you could put the flowers underneath and then stack groceries on top or something like that. And so there was multiple levels for storage space. She loved that. And
it was really low tech and really simple but useful.
It's so useful. But the thing that she loved the most, and she still talks about today, and I will never hear the end of this, is adjustable pedals. That vehicle had adjustable pedals.
Adjustable pedals were weird because they didn't last. Everyone had them for a while. And I know that short people like you celebrated the adjustable pedals.
I still celebrate them on the Ford and Ram vehicles that still have them. They make and it's not just for short people. It makes so much sense for somebody who has long legs and short arms, or short, legs and long arms. And so you can really and people say the tilt and telescoping steering wheel will make all of the difference. It'll make everything better. I'm going to call BS to that because I am that person and it does not work for me all the time.
I don't doubt that there are people that it works for, but the industry seems to have determined that it didn't matter enough to sway sales.
So what is really fascinating about that is first thing, I've talked to several manufacturers about why they did away with adjustable pedals. And I had one automaker tell me it was a gimmick. And I was like, nope, not really a gimmick. But then the other thing that I find interesting is IIHS actually did a lot of studies about 3 years ago about women being injured more than men in crashes, and it was their right shins, or it was their shins essentially that were getting more injured than any other part of their body. And my theory is if you had adjustable pedals on vehicles, it would push you back further and you wouldn't hit your shin on the underbelly of the dash because that's where the injury is coming in. And so, and I even talked to IIHS about that. And I said, so have you ever thought about doing a study with adjustable pedals and seeing if that makes a difference? And they were like, So TBD there, but I
would not be surprised because IIHS is the source of a lot of things. Like right now, they're looking into lighting and rear seat impact survivability, and we're going to see a rear ceiling airbag that's coming, almost certainly, and we're going to see some more innovations having to do with lighting.
Well, with
exterior
lighting
headlights
and automatic braking, as you guys talked about last week on the show, the automatic emergency braking is going to be a law by 2029. And right now, IIHS only tests up to 42 miles per hour.
Yeah, this is one though. This one's on the pedestrian detection, the accident avoidance stuff. Not IIHS sourced, but they're NHTSA sourced. That's federal government.
But I'm just saying, IIHS right now is very strict in their testing, and they only test up to 42 miles per hour.
Yeah, that'll change.
It will.
That'll change. We'll see that. But I think the rear occupant thing is going to come and be expensive.
Yeah. Well, so here's the other interesting thing. When they talk about the 5th percentile female, which is me, somebody who's about 5 feet tall and weighs 95 pounds, they were using anatomically male dummies to represent the 5th percentile female. Well, your pelvis, your rib structure, things are different in a woman than in a dude. And there's actually a woman who created a correct dummy for somebody my size.
Now, when you say they, we're talking about the people who do the crash testing.
Yeah, so NHTSA and IIHS.
Yeah, because we did learn that General Motors had a family of 12 dummies that they used to develop.
Think Mercedes might also have better dummies, but the people who do the actual crash testing,
and not to leave everyone else out, I don't know what other makers are doing.
That's true.
So the makers might be doing more than the testers.
Right.
So we don't actually know this stuff because there's no standardized way to report it.
That is true.
All right. You just drove an important vehicle.
I did.
An important vehicle, at least for Subaru.
Yes.
The Forester is new.
It is new.
I was just in Colorado.
Okay.
Every third car in the Denver area is a Forester.
Well, when you go to the Pacific Northwest in general, also every car is a Subaru, whether it's a Forester or an Outback or Crosstrek.
I thought the Outback was crazy strong out that way.
Yeah, and they all have canoes or things on top, which I know you love.
And then your article on the new Forester, you sent me pictures of kayaks on.
Of course. Yeah. So Damon Bell was on the trip with me, and for those who don't know, he was a previous co-host, and he saw that vehicle. And he's like, so you're totally taking a picture of that and sending it to Tom, right? And I was like, absolutely.
Again, my theory is that Subaru is paying people to drive around with kayaks on the roof.
So it's really funny because this new Subaru doesn't look crazy different. It's more of an evolution of design.
And why would it? The current car is so successful, so beloved.
Yes. So they kept the structure and the upright stance virtually identical. I want to say it was 0.7 inches, maybe longer. There's not much different in the width, the height, the overall length of this vehicle. It is, virtually in terms of sizing and stance, identical.
I bet you they're a little bit tied to the size. The reason being, I think that people who drive the Subaru Forester actually do venture off-road. I don't think they hit a rocky trail, but they have places they go to actually, God forbid, kayak. And then I don't think the vehicle can get larger on them. I think they need it about that size.
No, well, and they are so Subaru is one of those companies that is just very in tune with what their customers want. And their customers want that vehicle. And it's funny because when I put stuff out in social, people who are non-Subaru owners are always like, well, I don't understand why it doesn't have a digital screen. I'm like, because Subaru owners don't want a digital screen. But, when they did the press preview, Subaru actually put up a slide of what's new. And they're like everything. But when you go into the weeds and the details, you have an all-new interior and exterior design. So it's just updated and tweaked. You have a new full inner frame construction process. You have more high-strength steel, upgraded crash structure, new infotainment system. So starting on one level up off the base, you get the 11.6-inch vertical infotainment screen with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. You have a new eyesight system with a wider field of vision. You have,
and eyesight is their obstacle detection system,
correct,
plus other stuff.
Yeah, it's their safety suite.
Yeah.
You have new emergency stop assist, more sound deadening in the floor, higher quality interior materials, new seat design.
Is the interior nicer?
Yeah, it is. And I will say the interior, like the texture feels good, and just the visual design. Like they have textured design on the dash that looks really good. So, I mean, they did a good job there. And I like the vertical screen. I think there are a lot of people who don't, but I like it. But, I mean, there's just this list, and there's probably like 20 more things that are, in addition to what I've already listed that are also new. The engine isn't all new, but it's tweaked. It has more torque and a higher torque curve. There are some new features. So you've got, for the first time on the Forester, you have a kick-activated liftgate. You have a rear camera mirror. So that's in your rear view mirror that turns into a digital display. And you have a 360-degree camera available. And the last two items are only on the top-tier touring trim, which is $40,000.
So a little bit of money, but you don't have to buy that.
But when you think about it, the average transaction price for a new vehicle these days is $48,000. And so you can get an all-in, all the whistles and bells and whistles, however you want to say it, trim for $8,000 less than that. So I think that's pretty good. And the base price for the base Forester is going to be about $30,000. And the interesting thing to note there is if you're vegan, that is the only trim that does not have any leather in it.
Which one's that?
The base
trim. And is that like a neoprene?
It's like a cloth seat, and then I think they use like a leatherette material on the steering wheel, but no leather.
So just the one trim level.
Just the one trim.
And then you said they retuned the engine. Does it feel quicker down low?
No.
I
love the Forester. The Forester is one of those vehicles that I wanted my mother to buy, but it is not a peppy vehicle. It is just it'll get the job done. It'll get you where you need to go, but it's not quick.
Important question, and it's important to pose it to you. The 2.5 liter engine at Subaru is not a good stop starter. Is it better? No. It's kind of lumpy.
Yeah.
It's really, and if you're in a drive-through, like I drive through for iced tea 3 times a day at McDonald's, if you're in a drive-through and the car stops, a Subaru with a 2.5 liter engine, and then it fires back up, you're pretty sure someone shot at you.
Yeah, and by stop starter, you mean the automatic stop start that, like, when you come to a complete stop, your engine shuts down.
Yeah.
I hate that feature.
I'm fine with that feature as long as it doesn't suck. And the Subaru with a 2-liter engine, for some reason, is better than the bigger engine. Like in the Crosstrek, you can get both engines.
Yeah.
And in the Forester, there's just that engine.
Yes.
And then I think the turbocharged 2.4 that's in a bunch of their stuff is better.
The 2.4, yeah, because I think that's in the Outback, and it's funny because everybody always comments, why does the Forester get the turbocharged engine? Because they're trying to differentiate it from the Outback and cost.
And they used to do a Forester XT. This is years ago. That came with a turbocharged engine. And I don't know why they chose not to do it, but I don't think people bought it.
Yeah.
It's not what people are looking for.
Nope.
So nutshell, better vehicle?
A much better vehicle. I think that it's safer. I think it's more technologically advanced. It's more comfortable. It's quieter. I know that
quieter is good.
It is.
That was kind of a weak spot for that vehicle.
It was. I mean, there's still going to be a little road noise that comes in, but it is definitely a lot quieter. And it's just every Subaru I get into, I like to compare it to your favorite pair of jeans. It's comfortable. They're easy to get on. You know, they're easy to put on. Easy to sit in the seat of the Forester, any Subaru really, and it's just immediately comfortable. And so this does all of that and more. And like I said, the people who buy a Subaru, in addition to having dogs, they usually have a lot of dogs. They're looking for safety, and this has it in spades.
My favorite pair of jeans: Gene Roddenberry and Gene Stapleton.
Okay.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I will not worry about that. I got nothing. You're talking about music again, aren't you?
No.
Okay.
I am not.
Oh.
I'm talking about Star Trek and All in the Family. But anyway.
Oh, yeah. Still don't have that either.
When do the 2025 go on sale?
I think Imminently.
No?
Yeah, because, I mean, usually when you do a press program, they're getting ready to ship.
Yeah.
So.
Sounds good. Yeah, that's a really important vehicle. I have owned, full disclosure, I've owned a Forester. It's one of the best vehicles we ever owned. We owned a 1999 L, the base vehicle with a manual transmission. It was a fantastic vehicle. Didn't come with a radio, so we had to have one put in. That's how things have changed.
And I have 2 more notes to say with the Subaru Forester. A hybrid is coming. It's not out yet.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Or maybe I knew that and I forgot it.
Yeah. So hybrid, we did not test that, but a hybrid is coming. And then the other thing to note is right now there is no Wilderness model available, but I anticipate that's probably coming too.
They've been rolling out the Wilderness models, which are they're like additionally off-road ready at an interesting cadence, but they're on everything now.
Yeah. I mean, and so the 2024 Forester will have a Wilderness. The 2025 model just hasn't been announced yet.
And why not do that separately?
Yeah.
It's their thing. It's their magazine cover.
Yep.
All right, cool. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we talk to Christian Appel of Nikola. Stick around.
Questions or comments?
Drop us a line at carstuff@consumerguide.com.
That's carstuff@consumerguide.com. Welcome back to the Car Stuff Podcast.
All right, we're back. This is the Consumer Guide Car Stuff Podcast. I'm Tom. She's Jill. Jill, how you doing?
I'm doing well.
We're going to talk fuel cells in a moment.
Yes.
In a big way.
Yes.
All right, but first, I just need to remind people.
Of course you do.
I need to remind people that I am on Twitter, or X, as you call it.
X Twitter?
As I mentioned offline, and you knew this, I recently drove 2,500 miles in 2 days, 4 days.
Yes.
2 days off in the middle, to go visit my daughter and watch her graduate out in Fort Collins. And lots of cool cars out that way.
Yes.
You know what I saw?
A lot of Subarus?
No, yes. I saw a lot of Subaru. But we stayed at the Cambria Hotel.
Okay.
I think that's kind of a mid-level budget hotel, whatever it is. But they had 3 charging stations out front, level 2 right up front. Mm-hmm. And one of them was used the entire time we were there in the evening by a Polestar 2. So kind of a rare car. Nice to see it used. They looked very friendly. They were entirely free.
That's awesome.
I went inside. The manager knew nothing about them.
Of course not.
He couldn't answer any questions about the charging station except that he knew they were free.
And that they were there.
Yeah.
Okay.
But my point is I got a picture of that too. You should follow me on Twitter. I'm Car Guy Tom on Twitter. If I spot a cool car, car spotter hashtag.
Yes.
Sounds good.
Yep.
All right. Fuel cells, alternative energy. You ready?
Fuel cells.
All right. Our guest today is the global head of product and programs at Nikola. Nikola is a company you should absolutely know about. I don't think I know enough about it, so I doubt people not in the car biz do. But welcome to the program, Christian Appel. Hello, Christian.
Hey, Tom and Jill. Thanks for having me on the show today.
It is a pleasure. Thank you for joining us. You are the third Appel to be on this show in 2 weeks.
Oh, that's a coincidence. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a little weird. And none of us Appel seem to know each other beforehand, which is interesting.
That's right.
And none of you are related.
No.
Yeah?
Maybe we are.
That's right. We might be related. I don't know that I would go out on a limb and say we're not.
Yeah.
Christian, thank you for joining us today. I know you're a little bit under the weather. We appreciate your energy. For people who don't know, tell us what Nikola is.
Yeah, Nikola is a manufacturer of zero-emission trucks, as well as energy infrastructure provider. So on the truck side, we're all about, zero emissions, one platform, battery electric and fuel cell electric powertrains. And then we also work with a lot of different partners to get the infrastructure stood up, in addition to getting the trucks to the market.
Now, for people who maybe read the business news for a while and weren't really paying attention, you once had a relationship with General Motors, but that's not the case anymore, correct?
Well, that's not the case. There were some discussions, but that's no longer in the play.
So Nikola, bigger company, I think, than people know, about 900 employees. Is that correct?
That's right. About close to 1,000 employees.
And you guys made some news last week. I want to talk about the products that you guys are building and are going to build this year, but you guys made some news last week where you opened your second fuel cell charging center. Tell us about that.
That's right. So that was the second location near the port of Long Beach. The first one we opened in Ontario, California. And those are hydrogen refueling stations. And at these stations, depending on the equipment we have there, we call modular stations. We can fuel about 20 to 40 trucks or so per day. And each fueling event is less than 20 minutes.
Excellent. And you've got those right now, basically near port facilities. How many vehicles does Tesla have running right now in that area? Nikola, forgive me. I knew I was going to do that. Jill's laughing at me
I know
because
I'm
I knew
like trying to do the high five or the wave.
it was the same physicist. I get confused.
No problem. Yep, Nikola Tesla. So we announced that we wholesaled 35 trucks in Q4 of last year.
Wow.
Then another 40 trucks in Q1 this year. And then we're, planning anywhere to 50 to 60 for this quarter. And these trucks, they all have designated fleet customers behind them. And most of the ones that we sold last year and then also going into the Q1 sales, they're in operation now. And most of those sold into California and nearby the ports. California is obviously a good target market for us. There's lots of incentives available. And there's lots of progressive fleets that are interested to go on this zero emission journey with us.
So you've mentioned that that most of the trucks are being sold in California right now. I'm wondering where else your trucks are being sold and what the plan is to expand throughout the United States.
Yeah, absolutely. So for our fuel cell electric truck specifically, and to be clear, those are Class 8 semi-trucks, both the battery electric and the fuel cell electric. For the fuel cell electric truck, we're focusing on California initially, as well as Canada. And those are, I would say, two of the most important markets for us. And since it is some effort to get the infrastructure with that up and running, we're essentially going strategically from one market and then expanding from there, what we call the hydrogen hybrid. On the battery electric truck, it's a little different. The battery electric truck, we sold across the country already, wherever there's chargers available, and charging infrastructure is also a little easier to get installed. And Tom, as you just mentioned, right, you found chargers pretty much everywhere by now, even though most of that infrastructure is specifically for cars with hydrogen vehicles.
What's special about Canada?
Canada has very good incentives available as well on a province and city and also federal level. So those are point of sale purchase incentives. And the Canadian government, both the federal and local regional ones, they're also pushing a lot to get infrastructure projects up and running. So it's what we say, it's comparable from that regard to California.
Now, speaking of cost, the actual cost of the fuel cell vehicle is actually relatively high, but there is big money out there. Can you tell us a little bit about that? I know there's ISEF money and HVIP money. Is that federal, and how much does that offset the cost of a vehicle?
Yeah, absolutely. So in California specifically, we have the HVIP program, and that gives up to minimum $240,000 for any purchase at the moment, $120,000 for the battery electric truck. And then there's additional stackable incentives depending on the fleet size, where you operate, if you operate in the ports. And then that is supplemented by even more incentives that are available on a county level or city level. And then on top of that, you also have the $40,000 tax incentive on the federal level for each purchase of a zero emission Class 8 truck.
So who are the customers right now, without naming them? What are these? What are your customers like, and what are they moving?
Yeah. One of the big kind of customer pools that we have is operating in the ports.
Uh-huh.
Ports are terrible when it comes to air quality and noise pollution and so on. And that's where these zero emission trucks can really solve a problem, not only for, the fleets and the drivers that have a much better work environment when it comes to, both the noise pollution, the air pollution, the vibration and so on, but also for the community at large. And that's why we see a lot of interest specifically for those applications. But it goes much beyond that. And I can name a couple of customers that we've, either announced already or the customers themselves have announced it. So last year, we sold to Biaggi Brothers, which have been a long-standing partner of ours. They actually supported us throughout the development as well. Then for the Q4 and the Q1 sales, we also sold to IMC, which is the largest marine drayage company in the U.S., and they have an order with our dealer network for 50 trucks, and 10 are from from Q4 last year, and then another 10 from Q1 sales. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, Christian. I was just going to ask you to actually tell us about the trucks, but go ahead with what you were going to say.
I was just going to add, when we look at the battery electric side, as I stated earlier, we're selling these across the whole country, and there's many, many different applications. And that's great to see, because a lot of the different fleets, fleet types, and industries, they're really interested in getting zero emission solutions rolled out for the trucking business. And if you think about it, everything you touch, everything you use here, very, very good chance that it's being transported on a truck at one point. And so we're seeing interest really across the different industries and across the different geographical locations.
Cool. So tell us about the trucks themselves. How do they differ from diesel-powered trucks? Besides the obvious, they're not powered by diesel.
Right.
Our trucks are a little different than what you would usually see in the US, where you have those long rows conventional cab trucks, the engine forward. Our trucks is based on a cab over, so-called cab over architecture.
Yeah.
So, where the engine, the diesel engine, in the equivalent used to sit underneath the cab. And for us, that's where the fuel cell system is located for the fuel cell electric truck, and then a lot of electronics for battery truck. So the seating position is higher and more forward, which is really an advantage as you're trying to navigate very tight spaces and environments. And a lot of drivers have commented positively on that. And then, well, when it comes to the trucks, they're both electric powertrain systems. So they share the same e-axle. So it's an integrated axle with two electric motors. That's powered the first tandem axle. And that's no different than what you would see in electric cars today, just on a much more larger scale and powerful scale, right? And then for the fuel cell electric truck, we have a combination of the fuel cell system and the battery system that work together. And for the battery electric truck, the energy storage is all in batteries, high voltage batteries.
So I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the safety of hydrogen. I think that there are a lot of myths and misinformation out there about hydrogen. And, people are like, oh, if you get hit by a vehicle, it will, the hydrogen will immediately explode. And I think that there's just a lot of misinformation out there. So I'm just wondering if you can talk a little bit about how, the safety of hydrogen and using hydrogen as a fuel in these trucks.
Yeah, Jill, that's a very good question. And actually one of the my favorite topics to talk about. When we developed these trucks, and specifically the fuel cell electric truck and hydrogen storage system, there's a couple of very clear safety goals that we had, and there's a lot of testing we do, and there's a lot of safety systems we implemented. So when it comes, for example, to what you mentioned, something would explode or so, the goal always is whatever happens, the penetration of a hydrogen tank, a crash event, that two things: the tank needs to stay with the vehicle. It can't just go away and, go into the masses or something. And it has to not rupture. It can vent, penetrate it, but not rupture. And then a lot of the safety systems are essentially built around that. We did a lot of crash testing. We have developed our own crash standard that's relying on some of the regulation that you find in Europe. And so we designed a structure that can absorb some of that energy when it comes to impacting the hydrogen tanks. We also developed a thermoprotective coating for the tanks. So these tanks can stay in an environment of 1,000 C fire and hot 30 minutes, and then can still be tested, essentially pressure tested to over the nominal pressure.
Wow.
And then there's many other things, like we have deployed a crash detection system that uses the same technology as your airbag system. So in a split second, 300 milliseconds, we're able to detect the crash, judge if this is a deployable crash or not. And then if it is, then we actually fire pyro fuses to get the electric system disconnected. Mm-hmm. And we also close all of the valves in the hydrogen system. And then we have other things like venting and so on. So there's a lot of safety features that we put into this truck, and then a lot of testing we did to ensure that they all work as designed and intended.
That's crazy. Cool. Christian, real quick, when we talk about the fleet, if you're a fleet operator with these vehicles in your fleet, what's different about maintenance and general operation? Does it take more time, less time? Is the operational time better? How do these perform?
When you look at the maintenance and when you look at the different parts, then the maintenance schedules, both for the battery electric specifically, but also the fuel cell electric, is much less than you would find in a diesel truck. You have less fluids to deal with, less moving parts in that sense. So when you compare it one-to-one, that's definitely an advantage for our trucks compared to the current diesel technology out there. And that's something that especially large fleets that at any given time always need to go through these maintenance cycles that they much appreciate. And then the other part of that is that our truck is completely connected. It's completely connected to the cloud. We have in-truck and remote diagnostics available, so we can actually check what's wrong at any given point in time on the truck, and we can reach fault codes both in the truck and remotely. So there's no need for necessarily coming into a shop and hooking up an expensive tester tool to understand what's wrong with the truck in the first place, but this can all be done through the truck directly. And that's a big advantage, because with that, we remotely diagnose, and we can, in many cases, especially during the development where we had, still evolving around the software and the features, and there were smaller issues, then in many cases we could diagnose that immediately and actually run maybe a service routine or something to get rid of the fault. So that's another very big advantage we have.
That's cool. Now, Christian, we're running out of time here, but I have to ask, what is the future of the fuel cell over-the-road truck? We right now you have the 2 stations going, but the plan seems to be, in general terms, that we're going to see hydrogen charging stations along the interstate, along popular truck routes. How far in the future is that?
First of all, right now the trucks, both the battery electric and the fuel cell electric, they address the regional haul shipment. So the battery electric truck has up to 330 miles range, the fuel cell truck 500. And as we go forward and look into the future, then for sure we want to develop new products that can address also the long haul segment, where you're talking about ranges maybe 800-900 miles in true over-the-road trucks. And with that comes the build out of our infrastructure. So as we march forward and as we produce more trucks, we're planning to also open more and more stations. There's going to be 9 fueling solutions by mid this year that also include some capacity with partners, and then 14 by the end of the year. And again, we'll start out in California, we'll develop, the major highway system there, and then we'll branch from there into the other states. And as we scale up our production for the trucks, we will scale up the amount of fueling stations at strategic locations. And I think that's key, just focusing on the biggest corridors where you have a lot of freight volume every single day, and with that we can truly scale.
So with the infrastructure, I know that consumer passenger vehicles, some automakers have tried to build fuel cell vehicles to some success. When you build up, moderates. Well, okay, in California they exist, but I'm just wondering, if you're building this infrastructure, would passenger vehicles be able to use those fueling stations as well? And would this give new life to I don't know if you can speak about this at all, but would that give new life to passenger fuel cell vehicles?
Yeah, so it depends. There's different fueling standards available between heavy duty and light duty and passenger cars. Mm-hmm. So out the gate, our fueling stations are designed specifically for those heavy duty trucks and use cases. But there's opportunity to add additional dispensers in these assets and on those locations to ultimately be able to support passenger cars and light-duty vehicles as well. But that's not something right now we're focusing on. But for sure, as it scales, and there are products in the market, though very limited in terms of the geography, then that's something we could possibly support as well.
Christian, would the Nikola charging network be open to non-Nikola products?
Yeah, so the hydrogen refueling network will be absolutely available to the market. I think as an industry, we're really, we want more players. We invite everyone to come and to support on this journey for the decarbonization. And so we will work together. We're working together on new standards to enable even quicker refueling. And we absolutely work together on the infrastructure build out. And that, goes both ways, and we will support others that want to fuel them those stations.
Christian, I feel like we only scratched the surface of this topic. I hope you can come back and join us sometime.
Absolutely. I can go on and on about this.
Well, thank you so much. Where can people go to find out more about Nikola?
Yeah, always a good thing to check out our website. And then we're usually at all of the major shows as well. And one is upcoming next week, the ACT Expo.
Oh, cool.
In Las Vegas, which is one of the probably the most important industry show as it comes to commercial vehicle decarbonization efforts. And we'll have a big presence there. And usually everywhere we go, we bring trucks for a ride and drive because we want people in the trucks and experience the trucks. Seeing, is believing, experiencing is believing. And I would always encourage, come and check us out if possible at any of these events.
That sounds great. Christian, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks again for the invitation.
All right. That was Christian Appel of Nikola. We're going to take a break. And when we come back,
Quiz time.
Questions or comments?
Drop us a line at carstuff@consumerguide.com.
That's carstuff@consumerguide.com. Welcome back to the Car Stuff Podcast.
All right, we're back. This is the Consumer Guide Car Stuff Podcast. I'm Tom. She's Jill. We just learned a lot about fuel cell vehicles.
A lot of interesting stuff about fuel cell vehicles.
Yeah, I learned more than I thought I was going to. I didn't know they were building out a fueling network, for example. But that's a really great way to supplement revenue long term. I mean, it's a long trip from here to there. But that could work. And right now they've got stuff working between the ports, which is interesting. And I forgot about, and this is interesting, that the ports are actually, the governance over the ports is very interested in trying to reduce emissions and smog, and EVs are a way to go. And I think that's part of the incentive to go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
All right. You, Jill, social media things.
Yes, I do. I do all of the things. So TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, post, threads, all the things. You can find me at Jill Ciminillo. So my name, all one word, and that's with a C, not an S. And if Ciminillo is too hard to spell, I get you. I feel you. You can look for the hashtag car du jour. So it's kind of like soup du jour, but car du jour.
You could just make up social media outlets like Fuzzit and Wagger, and I wouldn't know. Oh, you're on Fuzzit. I am on Fuzzit. I'm on Fuzzit. Fuzzit would be good for cat owners. Or dog owners, because there's fuzz. I guess. Yeah. All right, it's quiz time, Joe. It is, and I have to tell you, so I listened to last week's podcast, and I got a 4 out of 5. Oh, congratulations. And then I got the bonus question. Do we add that to your permanent record? Yes, then? You do. You do. The only so you won last week. I did win last week. The only one I didn't get was the Fisker Ocean. I thought the Wave was the trim, not feels like one. Yeah, it feels like it should be, but I think maybe the Wave might be the Kia EV9. I think it actually is that. Yeah, so I'm like, that sounds familiar to me. Wait, so EV9 and I think the Kia. What's the Kia Niro? Niro, thank you. I think there's a Wave of that. Oh, there is a Wave. Yeah. But at any rate, so I felt compelled. I felt compelled to tell you I took the quiz and I did well last week. All right. Congratulations. Yeah. Thank you. I feel like we may have addressed this topic before. Okay. But this one's entirely different. Are you ready? Okay. It's real easy, straightforward. Are you ready? Mm-hmm. Was it a Pontiac? Oh, okay. All right. 5 questions. They're all about the car. 1 bonus question. That's absolutely about the topic of the day. That's absolutely about car stuff. Got it. Yeah, absolutely. And then you need 3 points to win. Right. All right. Are you ready? Pontiac. I'm trying to remember. Pontiac. It's been so long since they existed. I think Pontiac is my favorite all-time General Motors division. Okay. But maybe Oldsmobile. The thing about Oldsmobile was, and I know you don't know this car, and you certainly don't appreciate this car, the Toronado. Yeah, I know. One of the just freaking coolest cars of all time. Okay. Love the Toro, especially the old, I like the ones right around 1970. Okay. Damon goes back. Damon Bell, our friend and one-time co-host, he likes the older Toros. Okay. All right, are you ready? I am. I'm going to take a bite of the donut so you can read. It's a good-looking donut. It is. It's a Samoa donut, like a Samoa cookie. Nice. Yeah. So talk slowly so I can take a bite. What did you leave for Randy? I think that's just a chocolate. Yeah. You get chocolate this week. Randy gets the chocolate a lot. Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh. All right. Number 1, the Catalina. Mm-hmm. Pontiac or not Pontiac? You didn't talk slowly enough. You can just nod and I'll tell people. Pontiac nod, Pontiac no nod. Pontiac Catalina. I'm going to say no. Yes. Damn. You have no points. I have no points. The Catalina was a standalone model for a long time, and then became subordinate to the Bonneville in the 80s. So there was a Bonneville, and then underneath it was Catalina. It's a little bit like Impala and Caprice worked that way for a long time. Okay. All right. You have no points. Number 2, Star Chief. No. Yes.
crap. I'm like, none of these sound like they could be real. Okay.
Star Chief, 1954 to 1966.
That sounds like it should be on a Star Trek episode.
And I think it was usually a top-of-the-line model.
You are a Star Chief on Star Trek Enterprise.
I believe Star Chief was an American Indian thing, actually, and I believe that was reflected in the hood ornament. It would not be acceptable today.
That would not. I don't know how the Blackhawks are still a thing in Chicago, but yeah.
Good question.
Yeah.
I only have that conversation drunk.
Okay.
All right, Starfire.
I want to say no, but I'm batting like 0 at the moment.
You are batting 0.
I'm going with it anyway. I'm gonna say no.
No.
Oh, okay.
I mentioned Oldsmobile. Starfire was an Oldsmobile. It was
okay.
It was a full-size car from 1961 to 66, and a crappy hatchback and little coupe from 75 to 80.
Okay.
It was based on the Vega. Kind of good looking. They used to do a lot of stuff with decals and stuff on it. A small car, entry-level car. Not good.
Okay.
All right. Pontiac Delta. Was there a Delta?
Alpha, Beta, Gamma, Delta, Epsilon,
by the way,
Zeta,
you
Eta.
have 1 point.
Yeah, I have 1 point. Delta. Delta Force. Delta.
Not to put stress on you. You need to win the next.
I know.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. So it becomes much more important that I actually won the quiz last week because I am going to fail miserably on this. Pontiac Delta. I'm going to say no.
No. Nope, you have 2 points. There was a Lancia Delta.
Okay.
Starting around 1979. The history of the Lancia was too difficult to tidy up here, so I'll just say that it was a Lancia. Also, there was the Delta 88 at Oldsmobile.
Okay.
So there you go. You have 2 points. You're in much better shape now. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
This is the last one, man. You got to get at least one of the next 2 right. The Pontiac 6000. I love the music.
I know. It makes me... this is my pause.
I worry less about your pause. Yes.
This is my pause.
Good question.
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. Actually, it's a horrible question.
Have I said that today? Well, no one asks me questions, so...
It's a horrible question. Pontiac 6000.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to say yes.
Yes. You've won.
Huh?
You went from nothing to winning. The 6000 was available from 1982 to 1991. It was a General Motors A-body car, along with the Buick Century, the Chevy Celebrity, the Oldsmobile Sierra and Sierra Cruiser, and the Pontiac 6000. They sold millions of these cars. There was also a cool four-wheel drive sporty version called the STE and a diesel version. Now, you don't remember, obviously, that Pontiac did the thousands thing.
Mm-mm.
There was the T1000, which was based on the Chevette, the J2000, which is sort of based on the Cavalier, and the 6000 was based on those cars I just mentioned.
Okay.
But you have 3 points. All right, you ready for the bonus question?
I am always ready for the bonus question.
All right, F.W. Woolworth, five and dime drugstore kind of place, used to have a lunch counter.
Okay.
Today I happened to stumble across, while I was looking for it, a menu from F.W. Woolworth from 1951 at the lunch counter.
Okay.
You need to tell me which of the following items was not on the 1951 F.W. Woolworth lunch counter menu in... Oh, I knew what town it was. I didn't write it down, though. Can't help you.
Okay.
Good question.
Woolworths.
Woolworth.
Got it.
You ready? The American cheese sandwich, the meatloaf dinner, the chicken pot pie, or the braised calf's liver? Which was not on the F.W. Woolworth menu in 1951, at whatever town this was.
So my mind immediately goes to braised calf liver, which means it probably has to have been on the menu because that is just too obviously icky. I mean, ugh. Okay, so what were the other? You said meatloaf dinner,
the American cheese
sandwich,
the meatloaf dinner, the chicken pot pie, and the braised calf's liver. I may have made it up, but the braised calf's liver was 70 cents.
Maybe.
And the cheese sandwich was 20 cents.
So, random aside while I'm stalling, we found when we were cleaning out my parents' house, we found
a cheese sandwich.
Their the menu from they did a honeymoon in New York, and they have a menu from one of their dinners in New York City, and like the alcohol is like, $1 for a high price like beverage, and I'm just like, wow, I really wish this was they should rock it back to like 1965.
I was just in Fort Collins for my daughter's graduation, where ate nice dinners 2 nights in a row. Yeah, the $1 cocktail, not really a thing.
Yeah. But it's probably not a $16 cocktail in Fort Collins.
I don't think we did. I don't know. My daughter had some signature drink. I don't know what it was. I need an answer.
I know.
Yeah.
All right, I'm done stalling. Okay, I'm gonna say chicken pot pie.
Nope, that was real, and it was listed as a meal in itself.
Oh yeah.
The American cheese sandwich was 20 cents. The meatloaf dinner was 55 cents, and the braised calf's liver is fake.
Ugh.
Yep.
It was just so obvious. I just figured you wouldn't make it.
I've seen these menus before. I love old menus, and sometimes you run into liver and onions on those things. That is for you. We're almost out of time. Anything you got going you want to talk about?
So I wrote an interesting story over the weekend about Nissan
cars?
incentives.
Oh, okay. Oh, is this about? Because that's big news. Is this about the Rogue?
Well, not necessarily about the Rogue. I focused on the Armada. So essentially, the gist of the story is that instead of doing like factory incentives, Nissan has told their dealers they may price their vehicles below invoice.
This gets weird because it's not just price, it's advertised.
Yes, price and advertise their vehicles below invoice.
And this is interesting because this is a cooperative thing. Nissan can't tell a dealer what to do.
No.
Exactly. But you really want to do what the factory tells you.
Right.
Yeah, and they're advertising really crazy low prices on stuff right now.
Right.
Also on Facebook, I'm seeing really low prices on Facebook ads for Nissan products.
I was not, but I'm sure that the Facebook is listening, and I will now see.
I'm seeing them mostly on the Altima and the Rogue.
Yeah, the Armada can. So most of the price cut is 10%, but the Armada is up to 15%. So they can advertise up to 15% off of the invoice price for the Nissan Armada, which it takes a $70,000 vehicle and really lowers the price.
Yeah, we should talk about this. At the beginning of this month, I think it was, I think Nissan still had 25,000 2023 Rogues in inventory.
Yeah,
we are halfway through the model year.
They have 3 months supply, more than 3 months supply on their dealer lots right now.
Which is a lot for a Japanese maker.
Yeah.
You'll see that Ford, Chevy, and Ram, for example, always have lots and lots and lots of pickups, but that's because there's so many iterations of those trucks that they have to have them. And that's why those dealers always have huge lots.
Right. And I'll be honest with you, I don't understand why Nissan has this problem. Do you have any inklings of what's going on here?
No, actually, I don't. And I've read a lot about this. They simply overbuilt after they underbuilt.
Yeah.
And they got too far with them. They got too far out over their skis, built too many vehicles, and now they're stuck with them. And one of the things that gets expensive for a dealer is what they call floor planning. You buy these vehicles, you own them, and you have rented. Basically, you've purchased them, with a loan that you pay on every month while the car sits there unsold. Very expensive to unsold inventory. So it's very interesting. They're also making use of something called stair-step incentives, which is a lot of dealers consider a curse, where every vehicle right now has an additional $1,000 on it. And I think it is actually $1,000. Okay. But you only get that $1,000 if you sell whatever number the factory assigns you. You don't get it if you sell 3 of them. You have to sell like 45. And then 45, you get $1,000 for every vehicle that you sold under it. So you will do crazy, crazy things to get like those last 5 in under the month because you need all that money. And you might just give away a car. Yeah.
So the gist is, now is a really good time to go buy a Nissan.
It is. Yeah. And the Rogue is an excellent vehicle.
And so is the Armada. So is the Altima.
The Armada is not an excellent vehicle. Every other Nissan's pretty good.
But it's a good 3-row full size, and the selling point V8. No. The next iteration of the Armada will not have a V8.
Yeah. I do not recommend the Armada. I'm not crazy about the Altima. Every other Nissan's really good stuff.
I'm not a huge fan of the QX80 or the Armada, but if you need a 3-row vehicle and you don't want to spend a mint and you want some luxurious items, I think it's a good buy right now. That's what I'm trying to say.
Get a Grand Highlander.
Still going to cost more?
Yeah, it's a better vehicle. It's going to have better resale. Just overall, it's going to work out. You have to pay for gas for an Armada or a QX80.
But V8 engine.
Yeah. And you have
People want a V8 engine.
Not that bad. They want a good V8 engine. Those are terrible vehicles.
Tell me how you really feel.
No, the Armada and the QX80. The new one might be very good, but the current one I would not spend even 18 grand off. I wouldn't do it. Yeah.
Ouch.
No.
Okay.
Least interesting vehicle in that class.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ouch.
But a Rogue?
Rogue is nice.
Yeah.
I like the Rogue.
Yeah, any other Nissan. That's good stuff. All right, guess what we did?
We talked too much.
We did. Actually, we talked a lot. Talked a lot today.
talked a lot.
Good show. Thank you to Christian Appel of Nikola for talking to us today. I would like to have him back. I feel like somehow our overview was very thin.
Yes.
Not his fault, my fault.
Well, 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, just a lot of topic.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Jill. Good to see you in studio. You're not here next week.
No.
All right. I need to get a guest host for that. And thank you to producer Randy and the good folks here at TalkZone.
Yes.
All right. Oh, and if you hear this, I'm on with Steve and Johnny next Saturday, WGN Radio in Chicago at midnight Chicago time.
Got it.
All right. Let's talk more about cars
next week.
Remember to check us out at consumerguide.com.
The Car Stuff Podcast is produced by J-Turn Media.
To advertise on the show, please drop us a line at carstuff@consumerguide.com.